Hey, look, why don't we welcome up Pastor Jace, Pastor Katie, Pastor Laura, and Pastor Peter as they share with us tonight.
Hey, did you enjoy that message as well from Pastor Pete? What an incredible message. Yeah, you can go ahead and thank them. That was a powerful, powerful message.
No, seriously.
Hey, we love these guys. Honestly, it's going to be so fun. So we're so blessed, Pastor Pete, Pastor Laura Toggs. For those watching online, Hillsong Global Youth Generations, pastors, extraordinaire, experts. These guys are incredible leaders, and we're so honored to have you here. We love you. Come on, don't we love them in this place? We love you, and so thank you so much for being here. Let's talk relationships.
Let's do it. I have a question.
Okay.
Pete, I was thinking, were you old school with your values in terms of when you wanted to ask Laura and Mary?
Wait. So. No, you need to ask this question, but I think we need to just backtrack a little bit. Tell us how you met. Let's go from square one.
From square one.
Yeah, square one. Like
Okay.
you can't jump to that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I reckon tell us square one. How did it all? I know you touched on it a little bit, but how did this happen?
You tell it. It'd be good to hear her story
From
your perspective, because mine's a little bit different, I think.
You definitely take creative liberty with your
Oh,
story,
yeah, no,
but
yeah,
that's
no.
okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. It's such an honor to be here, and I don't actually I'm not blowing smoke. I don't do that. Like I truly, it's really lovely to be here and to see a beautiful, thriving community, this church. And so, yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Anytime.
We met when we were kids. So Peter's older brother and my older brother played on the same football team, played rugby league, and so we met in the playground.
Side note, go Para. Rugby, yes,
Yeah,
Lord.
go Para, yeah. And basically the story goes that there was no support.
No love.
By the way.
I was like, oh.
That's
Jason just had a moment. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
He fell in love with me when he was 7 years old, apparently. It took me another 20 years after that.
wow.
No, not quite. Because we would have already been married 6 years if that was the truth.
I was 7 years old, and I remember what she was wearing. I know that sounds kind of sick, but like
That's creepy.
She was wearing a blue hat, the one with the sunshade out the back, from the UV rays, blocking the UV rays. She was eating a green apple, and I always joke, but I always say, I looked across the way and I said, "Daddy, I want that one there." The problem is, she didn't see me.
That is so weird.
Doesn't
So
that
weird.
make you feel uncomfortable?
But she didn't even notice me till she was about 15 years old. And when she did notice me, she friend-zoned me. Now, friend-zoned is a hard zone to get out of. But look who's laughing today.
Come on,
yeah.
let's go.
People would actually say, because we were really good friends, and I loved him as a friend, and people
hard,
would
that's
say,
hard to hear that.
It did look very different back then.
No, nothing to do with your looks at all. But people would say, you and Pete should get together. You get along so well. You have fun together. You laugh, all that stuff. And I would say, I love him, but we will never ever be together. It was like a deep conviction of my heart. And then one day, I had been let down by another guy. Yeah. I'm at youth on a Friday night, and I'm like sitting up the back, kind of like at a crossroads, time in my life. And I look down, and Pete's just in the sweat, in the middle, in the heat of youth. In tribal wars, does anyone know the tribal challenges and tribal wars and stuff? So he was in it, and something changed. I fell in love with him in tribal challenges.
That's sweet.
In a moment.
Fijian.
Yeah.
In a moment,
Wow.
I saw him completely different.
She saw the glory descend upon me and just was like, "Daddy, I want that one there."
Was this when you had the afro?
I don't know, was it? No, I probably just got rid of it then.
I think, it was, maybe that wasn't it.
I used to have...
That wasn't it. I loved it.
No, I used to have one of those, really cool, is afros?
It was an afro.
It was an afro, but we knew each other as kids as well, but it was one of those ones that dreaded itself. And at one point I could take the dreads out It was weird. Yeah, I know. I don't know why I told you that, but just...
So tell us, as I was asking before, I jumped straight to it. But tell me, you realised that you're both interested in each other. What was the process from there? Like when we hear, some men ask the fathers for the lady's hand in marriage.
Real men.
You know.
Yeah.
How did it happen? And tell us
Okay.
about how do you ask her to marry you?
Okay, let me tell you real quick, brief version. She ended up liking me. So I would like to say that I chased her till she caught me. That's what I said.
Write that down.
I was always kind of like, yeah, right, point number 1, chase her till she catches you. No. But she had that moment. Anyway, we go out on this date, which wasn't a date. We kind of did that anyway. We just caught up. And then over dinner, she was like, I think I like you. And I was like, you got to understand, this is like my dreams coming true, childhood dream. And I'm like, are you serious? By this time, we're in the car, and I'm like, you got to understand, my dreams have come true. So we're driving the car in, I think it was my mum's car, and we're driving around, and she goes, I'm like, so, like, what you said at dinner? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, so you like me? And she's like, yeah, I think I like you. And I slammed the brakes, like almost caused a car accident. Cars behind us, like beep. That was a big car. Anyway, we went driving for a few more minutes. We ended up getting lost. Do you remember all this? We ended up getting lost. And because I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Fast forward, we date for about, a year and a half? I could have dated for 3 weeks and then popped the question. But I thought I would respectfully wait and save up for a ring. And one day, we were overseas, actually, with her parents, engaged at a ministry thing. And I remember sitting down with her dad, Pastor Brian, who was Pastor Brian to me. Everyone always asked me, what's it like dating Pastor Brian and Bobby's daughter? And I would go, I actually don't know, because to me, I was dating the girl that I liked. And so that was always my thing. It was like, yeah, but it's the girl I like. So I don't know what your... Yeah, anyway. But I asked him. I sat him down. He was reading a newspaper, and Laura was actually at the table. And
should we reenact it? I reckon, Loz, can you do dad? Can you be your dad, reading the paper,
Wait,
the
hold
voice
on.
and everything?
Sure, but I wasn't. I left the table because
Yes.
Yeah, Pete was like, "Do you need to go to the bathroom?" And I was like, "That's weird."
Do you need
Because
I'm
I
inviting
literally
you to go to the toilet.
We were hanging out with each other like all the time, and there was literally not a moment. So I was like, okay, the trip's coming to an end. Babe, do you need to go to the bathroom or something? And so I know,
was
it
like,
sounds silly.
I was like, "Oh, all right." So I go to the bathroom.
And in the moments that I had, Pastor Brian was reading a newspaper, and I go, so I really like Laura. And then you just see the newspaper come down.
No.
And I asked him, and he was actually kind of shocked, and he's smiling. And then Laura was on her way back, and so he just pulled the newspaper back up. And then we just pretended, I was like, yeah, so youth's good. And she came and sat down. Anyway, we chatted after that while she wasn't there. And I asked him, like, I really, really have loved your daughter since I was 7 years old. I want to marry her. And he was like, yeah, okay.
That's so good. You know what? I'll just say what happened with me and your dad. Because, like, everyone here knows Pastor Barry. He's like, this is such a Pastor Barry thing. When I asked him whether I could marry you, right? So I went up into his office and I said, I didn't say dad. I was like, hey, dad. No, I didn't say that. It's like, hey, Pastor Barry, can we catch up? Can we have a meeting? And he was like, yeah, no problem. I said, let's go up the road and get some milkshakes. I'm trying to like speak to his heart, you know what I mean? Like, let's go get some milkshakes. And so he was like, okay, cool. And so what he does is he sits down, and I could tell he was like super awkward, super like what's going on? And anyway, this is what he does. And so I was like, so, you know, I wanted to have a conversation with you about, he goes, he pulls out this piece of paper from his pocket, and he wrote down, he had something written down on it, and he slides it over to me, right? And then he pulled out another piece of paper, right? And he put it under his hand.
Wow.
And you just got to understand, like, if you know Pastor Barry, this is 1,000% what he would do. So I'd like take the first thing, I open it up, I'm like, and it says, you're gonna ask me to marry my daughter. and then he slides over the next thing, and I'm
Like
like,
romantic.
yeah, are we in a relationship right now? I don't know what's going on. And I open it up, and he's like, of course. And I was like, and honestly, both of us are like cries at the best of time. We're like, no, I love you, you know.
So had he kept that in his pocket?
No, so I think after I said this meeting, yeah. Wait, like from
Just
the day he
waiting for
met
the
me,
day.
he just had it in his pocket. No,
Every jacket.
yeah, every day he was just waiting. He's like, he's gonna come and ask me
Gotta
today.
give her away.
No, man, that was us. That's what happened. Yeah. Anyway, so, hey, you guys, tell us about relationships. Obviously, relationships, they have their ups, they have their downs, like awesome times, challenging times. Was there ever a moment? I know this is real talk, like we're diving in. Was there ever a moment where you guys were like going to call it off? It's like, oh, this is not going to. Was there ever a time, or was it smooth sailing?
Like on the way to church? Like, no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I did that.
Like this morning?
I wanted to do
Like-
shock
like
factor.
today?
Yeah. No, like not. Well, the one time I can remember is when we were dating, and we're about 2-3 months, and Laura begins to have second thoughts. So this is my dream girl, now having second thoughts, and we're sitting in a room, and she's like, not in her room, accountability. No, we're sitting in the lounge room, and we're sitting out there, and she's just like, kind of acting all sheepish. And then I was like, is everything okay? She's like, yeah, I just don't know about this anymore. And before she even said one more word, I was like, I walked out the door, slammed the door, but it was one of those doors, you know, you slam and it slows down. I was like, she doesn't know I'm angry. Got in the car, threw on some Celine Dion, cried myself to sleep, went missing for 48 hours, uncontactable.
He actually was uncontactable. And I was like, I didn't even break up with him. Before I even broke up with him, he was just out the door. He disappeared completely. Nobody could get in like contact with him at all. And I was like, wait, I wasn't really even breaking up. I was just communicating. I was having doubts. Like that was it.
But on a serious note, look, I don't think you would. I mean, I get there's probably marriages out there and relationships out there where your marriage is perfect in every way, and you probably haven't had these days, but there have been tough moments. And something we've made a decision, and something we've been really deliberate about, is we'll never use the D word in our marriage. And I can't remember once we divorced. That's what we're talking about, by the way.
Thanks for clarifying. Good
Definitely need to
clarification.
clarify.
But we'll never use that word. I mean, we used it just then, even saying it then. And I understand everyone's in a different season and
Different stories and
different
backgrounds.
stories and different backgrounds. And so I guess we're just speaking from our journey. I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah.
But we've definitely had moments where we're like, if we don't work this out, it's not going to look good for us. You know? And there's so much at stake when it comes to marriages and relationships. When you get married and when you do have kids, and there's so much at stake. Your kids, the generations, and
I remember having this like really like kind of critical moment for myself where I realized, oh crap, we're together forever. Like, and I think like when you're a young person, when you're young, like forever is just like this beautiful like romantic notion. And then when you're doing forever together, you realize, oh, okay, this forever is like, it's hard work. Like it's perseverance at times, and there's times where it's like enjoyment and it's lovely and there's momentum to it, and then there's other times where it's just can feel like a bit of a hard slog, you know. And so I wouldn't say there have been moments where we're like ready to like call it and walk away, but there have definitely been moments where we've had to have like really honest conversations with one another and figure out like what is it that we want. Like, what do we want for our relationship? What do we want for our future? Like, what, and we need to get on the same page, and we need to figure this out. Otherwise, this is going to be really, really hard.
So good.
Yeah.
Even what you guys shared this morning about being anchored in vision, having a mission for your relationship, I think is so important to doing relationship well and going through the highs and lows of relationship. In the context of breakups, because we've talked about singleness, dating over this series, right? Talk to us a little bit about breakups. We don't want to hang on this too much, but how does someone break up well? Because sometimes, even in church world, you kind of you might date someone.
Pre-marriage or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry,
Dating.
pre-marriage. Yeah. So, and obviously there are people who are watching, and even people in this room who've experienced that before. How do you do that well? How do you get back into community with someone that you've just had this moment with? Like, have you guys ever experienced that? Maybe not for yourselves, but ever helped someone else through that? What would your advice be to someone who's in that space?
Yeah, I think that when you choose to date somebody, it's a risk. It's in some ways it's like a gamble, they say, like, because it can go either way. It can work or maybe it won't work. And you know what? That's okay. I think that's okay. Like, I think especially like young adults, like, you have to give things a shot, give things a go. And I think as community, and especially as young Christians, I think that we should be better at that. We should be better at dating, and allowing people to date, not making it weird and not making it a big deal, and not I think I see a lot of people who are dating quietly, secretly, and I don't think that's healthy. But I understand it. I understand it because I think sometimes in our communities, in our Christian communities, we can make it uncomfortable, we can make it weird, we can put pressures on people, we can ask big questions that they aren't prepared to answer, and so we kind of force people into these situations where they have to date in secret, and I think in the darkness, that's where you are an easy target in the darkness, that's where things go wrong, that's where there's an unhealthy, toxic kind of relationships happen, I believe, in the dark. And so I think if we can just start off there, have relationships in open spaces, under the light, and with good godly counsel, and make it, I guess, normalized in a way within our Christian circles, within church. And then, when things perhaps don't work out as well, then let's continue to be community. And I would say that my number one suggestion, encouragement would be, don't isolate yourself in any stage. Whether you are dating, you can isolate yourselves as a couple, which again is allowing things to be in the dark. Or you can keep yourself surrounded by friends, surrounded by good godly counsel. And that just creates a really healthy, it gives your relationship a better chance, but also creates a healthy foundation. And then also, I think you can break up healthily. Yeah. And breakups don't always have to be dramatic. Breakups don't always have to be heart-shattering. Breakups don't have to devastate us. Now, I understand when you give your heart to somebody, that is precious, and there will be times where you are disappointed. There will be times where people let you down. People are human, and it's an unfortunate reality, but it will happen, and I'm sure it has happened to many of us. And yet the kindness of God is so beautiful that He heals, that He restores, that He redeems. But in saying that as well, that doesn't have to be your story. And I think that if you do dating well and healthily, then you can also go, hey, this is not working out. This perhaps is, perhaps I don't feel strongly enough for you. Maybe there is somebody who is going to love you like you are worthy of being loved, right. And yeah, that might be disappointing for a moment, but it's way better than perhaps that person being unfaithful. You know what I mean? And so I think breakups, if I could say, community belongs when you're dating, but also when you break up. And that's the beauty of being a part of the church, the beauty of Pete's message, this is us, we do it together. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're here to walk this out with you, and time heals. It does, time heals, and so just keep holding on, keep putting God first, loving God, loving people, and hope for the future.
You can go ahead and clap that. That was a great answer.
That's good. And you touched on it briefly, but what are your thoughts on when people say, when they're dating, that they got to settle because they're worried they won't find love, and they've found someone who, I guess, does the job, they keep me company. What would be your advice to someone like that?
I feel like with any relationship advice, like there's so many different answers and you want to take all this time, but obviously, you can only zone into one thing. I would say, look, just never settle on don't compromise your convictions. I've seen this in young adults. I've seen this happen with some of the people we've pastored. They've compromised their convictions about whether it's being in the house of God, putting God first. They've gotten into a relationship, and for whatever reason, they've been enticed, they've been distracted, they've been pulled away. And, some of those relationships, sadly, they're not in church. And I would say, I don't know what it means to settle, but I would say don't compromise your convictions.
Yeah.
Don't compromise it. Now, it doesn't mean you're stubborn. It doesn't mean you're no fun. But I think, again, relationships are a disadvantage. And I think it's good to practically, maybe be upfront and go, hey, if we're going to keep going with this is what it means for me. Yeah. This is what my faith means. This is what it means for me to be in the house. Yeah. And just see where they're up to. And then it's a good gauge. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a good gauge where that relationship's up to if that person's not willing to, come alongside as well. Around faith matters,
Yeah.
That's so good. Just kind of like I'm following on from that. It's a really great question from the floor, right? The question is this: when do you know when to give the relationship up? So when's the right time? How would you know that? This is actually not a good relationship for me. What are the signs? What are things that you need to be looking for to go? Yeah, I think it's actually time to call this off.
The only thing I'll say, I'm sure you got a better answer than this, is obviously be listening to your heart and the Holy Spirit. Listen to your heart. Wait, okay. Keyboardist, please. Why am I holding my throat? I'm trying to remember what I was saying.
Listen to your heart.
Yeah, I think listen to the prompting of the Holy Spirit. You'll know when something's off, if there's something off. And not that you should listen to every single person, but listen to the ones you trust. And just listen to that. You don't always have to go with "Thus saith the Lord" and that person. And don't even just go with the general minority, but the people that you trust. Just get a gauge. And at the end of the day, it's your decision. It's your decision. But I just think, just keep an ear out for those that you trust. I don't know, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, and I think that if there's enough red flags, you've got to pay attention to it, and I think that often we can be blinded by love, and blinded by, oh, well, they're so attractive, or they're this, or they're that, or like whatever it may be. And yet, and so we can ignore those kind of those red flags. But it's not worth it. I'll just say it's not worth it. And so if you have those red flags, pay attention and make the hard call. Yeah.
And are those red flags, sorry, because I'd love to hear from you as well. Are those red flags, are they just feelings that you feel?
They might be patterns of behavior.
Yep.
Great.
They might be
Patterns.
I think patterns is really key. And so there's always balance to a degree. But if it's out of balance, and it really, really is affecting you, maybe it hurts you emotionally, maybe it doesn't line up with your values, maybe it's just straight up immoral. Whatever it is, I think, just have those eyes. God has equipped us, right? He's kind. He wants the good for us, and He's equipped us with eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to understand. And so when we actually put on our spiritual lenses, have those ears to hear, are close to the Holy Spirit, we have that godly counsel around us. We have to remember Jesus is called Wonderful Counselor. Yeah. That's who He is, Wonderful Counselor. He can counsel us, and He's too kind to actually let us fall into traps. And so if we actually are in line with the Spirit, then we'll know. Yeah. We'll know, and we should pay attention to that. And also, I think, we've been saying, listen to the wise, trusted voices in your life.
Yeah. I think it's also understanding the other person you're dating, potentially married, is also another human. They're not perfect, and guess what? Neither are you. I'm not perfect. So I think the balance and the other side of it is, you don't always have to be sus on every single person. I get why you may be sus if there's been some hurt and pain in the past and you want to be sure, and I get all that. But I think there's grace for people. But like Laura said, practical advice, look for patterns of behavior. You know, trust takes years. Credibility takes years to build, but in moments can be destroyed like that. And I think in relationships, whether you're pursuing a relationship, one thing to keep a lookout for is a pattern of behavior. Maybe it's my personality, but I know many of you know that like one thing I cannot stand is deceitfulness. And I think you've got to look for that. And I'm not saying you're sus on everything they do. And, you know, whose social media account were you looking at? Oh, my goodness, where were you? Who's this and who's that? You've got to have grace for people and trust people first, benefit of the doubt. But also you've just got to look for patterns of behavior. And if there's deceit there and continual deceit, then you've really got to ask some questions and make a decision, you know.
So practically, tell us who were the wise counsel for you guys?
I mean, we had youth leaders. Youth leaders were incredible in our lives. I think, you know, both of our parents.
Tell them when you were dating that particular young man, of which will remain unnamed, but in that season, and how Lucinda Dooley and Sarah Caroya.
Our youth pastor at the time was dating this guy, and it was sketchy. Like,
no, you weren't dating our youth pastor at the time.
Oh.
Just our youth pastor at the time was giving Laura wisdom. I walked
into church, and our youth pastor was like, "Oh, I'd love to catch up this week." And so we organised a time, and I went and sat with her, and she just straight up said to me, like, I don't believe that this guy is a friend to your destiny. Like, and it was the truth.
It took guts for her to do that. I mean,
yeah.
But it also takes guts to hear that.
Yeah.
And receive. I think
but there was also relationship there as well.
There was the rapport, there was the trust, there was the time that she had put in previous to having that meeting with me, where she had built that rapport with me and that trust. And so she could speak into my life. And I think that's so important as well, as leaders, like as disciples as well. And so we had friends, like really cool friends that just care about our future. And even now, like, they're friends to this day. And so, yeah, community of people.
And do you guys have people in your life now that speak into your marriage?
Yep. We were saying this morning, you know, we've gone through different seasons, tough seasons, mountaintops, valley lows. And pre-marriage, we used to see this older couple, Bill and Betty Johnson. And we met with them, and they were married for close to 70 years.
He's gone on to be with the Lord.
He's gone on to be with the Lord, and he spoke into us dating and pre-marriage. It was really cool.
When we were doing our premarital counselling, we chose them because we figured we would love to have people who have done the time. And they had done like 50 or 60 years of marriage.
Totally. Proof's in the pudding. Yeah. And then even when we were married, we sat down with a couple, Robert and Amanda Ferguson, dealing with some of the tensions that came with ministry, busyness, life, kids. And we asked them, hey, can we just meet up and do it? And it doesn't mean we have to meet up weekly, regularly. But it just meant we knew that they were there when we were in the toughest seasons of our life. And then we've reached out for help when it's come to our own mental well-being. We've reached out to experts, psychologists who have helped us outwork some things. I said this morning, but I felt like in our marriage and our kids and our family, we were going from walking on a balancing beam, which was 6 inches off the ground, to now a balancing beam that was 6 stories off the ground. And I felt like so much was at stake, and we weren't gelling at the time in terms of patterns and rhythms. We were traveling here, traveling there, you know, passing ships in the night, and then our kids. And for me, one of the tensions was Laura's grown up in a family where it's ministry and it's traveling and it's, you know, being away. And for me, mum was always around, dad was always around. And I was like, and that coming together and, you know, beautifully coming together.
It wasn't beautiful.
It wasn't beautiful.
It was
it was work. It was a whole lot of snot and tears. And what that does on your own mental well-being. We've reached out to psychologists, and I'm glad in this day and age, the stigma is being removed. You've got something wrong with you. I see a psychologist regularly, not because something's wrong, because I don't want something to go wrong. And so I think make use of those services that are available, and even just godly counsel. Notice I said godly counsel, because there's a lot of counsel up there. I think make sure you'll always find what you're looking for. You'll always find someone that's going to agree with you. I found that really interesting in this pandemic, as we were all isolated and everything. It's funny, you tend to hang out with the people that agree with you.
Yep.
You tend to hang out with
Who can confirm
who can
your
confirm.
view.
And you find that. And I think it's really important to do life with people that have different perspectives, different angles. All our friends and godly counsels in our life, they don't all look like us. They don't all think like us. They don't all, they aren't all in the same seasons. And I think when you bring this all together, it brings different angles. And at the end of the day, it's your decision. But I think be careful when it comes to counsel. It's not just counsel, but someone who's aligned with what you're a part of, this church.
And look for the fruit in their life
and
as
look
well.
for the fruit.
You know, the fruit
And that's
speaks
big
for
one.
them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I listen to. I listen to someone who's got fruit and someone who's got fact as well. And fruit and fact, I think, are working together, because you always listen to someone and they have their bias on something. They have their what's not to say it's not valid, but I want to listen to someone that has done the years, they've done the journey, can speak into this. So
That's I think that's important, because even I was talking to someone today, and I think manipulation is a huge thing in relationships, and that's what I always say to people. I don't care what they say, tell me what they're doing. Show me the fruit. I couldn't care less, because some people are brilliant at words and brilliant at convincing, and even with scripture and all that sort of stuff. But that discernment, you feel, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. And sometimes it's like, if I sit there and if I told my mum what was happening, or if I told my Connect group leader, and they don't know the person, that's always good, because they go, whoa, like that does not line up with what the Bible says. So
it's always interesting meeting up an individual like that, and they've walked into a room and then they leave the room, and it's kind of like, what was that? Like, it's like, what just happened? It's like a tornado. They walk in the room and they, anyway. Maybe it's just
good.
us.
I was literally going to ask that, because, like, that's actually, I think, when we talk about pandemic, I don't want to use that word, but it's like, there's I think, a real issue going on where, you kind of look at couples, and if you want relationship advice, you go to people that have got runs on the board, right? Like, common sense will tell you that. Yet, there's so many single people who are asking other single people for relationship advice. There are married couples who are asking single people for advice on how to have a healthy marriage. And so it's all like convoluted, where it's like, no, like, why would you, don't you want to go to someone where you actually want to become more like them and bear the fruit that they're bearing? And I think that's actually really powerful. And I want to kind of bring that back to the whole concept of community that you were sharing about. You talked about, even this morning, you touched a little bit on the whole church hopper idea. Why is it so important to be planted? Because I think that's, like, let's get real. Let's talk straight to them. Why should I be planted in a church?
Well, I mean, Psalm 91 or Psalm 92 continually speaks to this. Those who are planted, I can't remember all 4 or 5 of them, but they'll bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. I can't remember the others. I wish I had it here. But it's so important. There's so much fruit that comes with those that are planted. And research is showing, and the experts, who are the experts, I don't know, but when you just say that, it's just like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. But they're saying, particularly a younger generation that's coming through, they're leaving jobs quicker. They're exiting jobs quicker. They're moving from relationship to relationship. So when I say church hopping, I don't just mean I mean people when they're not happy or something uncomfortable happens or causes them discomfort. It's like, oh, I'm out. I'm not doing this job because, that's uncomfortable for me. Now, let me set this premise real quick. If there's something that is causing discomfort in terms of, abuse or something going on, that's different. You got to address that in a different way. I'm not saying stay in a relationship, I don't want to open this up to a Pandora's box, but it's just a different conversation. I'm not telling someone to stay in an abusive relationship or an abusive blah, 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 blah. You have to make a decision. But generally speaking, I think when it comes to being planted, I think it's like churches, work, careers. Life comes to you in seasons. And life is going to throw every season at you and every discomfort at you. It's going to feel so uncomfortable. But we've got to make sure we're a generation, or we raise up a generation that understands, you know what, I've got to stick at this. This is going to make me a better person. This is going to shape something in my life. And, we're youth pastors, youth and young adult pastors. And I've seen over time where, the people have just been like, nah, it's not working for me. And I've seen people go from relationship to relationship. The problem is, church hoppers as an illustration, is wherever you go, there you are. And sometimes you've got to look for the common factor in all of this. If there's a problem everywhere you go, you've got to ask yourself, well,
You might be the problem.
you might be the problem. And I'm generally speaking, I'm having a little fun with you there, but I think it's so important. You'll always find what you're looking for, and you've got to make sure that you just understand when it comes to, if we're talking about being planted in the house of God, like I said, redwood trees, it's planting yourself in, digging your roots in deep.
And in good soil.
In good soil,
Yeah.
serving, tithing, being generous, loving each other, turning up to things, getting involved. Your kids are coming up through the youth ministry and the kids, and you're doing life together, you know. And that's what I think those church foyers are absolutely vital, because that's where, this is where we come and we do life in church and we worship and we hear the word together. But doing life together is so important.
Yeah.
But that's planting. That's planting.
Yeah. And I think there's so much value in loyal commitments. Like making loyal commitments and sticking to them, and that's faithfulness. And that's what the word of God just puts it plain and simple, like in front of us, like faithfulness, like commit, like be planted. And the church is beautiful. The church is God's design. God designed the church. It has endured. It has been so resilient. It has lasted for generations, and it will last for generations. And even though it can come under attack, it can be imperfect, of course, and yet God's grace, it's still God's idea. It is still his design, and he still has so much purpose for it. And so I would just say, plan yourself. This is, as disciples of Jesus, this is what we're supposed to do, is to build the church, to be the church, and everything that Pete spoke about tonight in his message.
It's funny though, because in the professional sporting world, I love sports, and I love this person's leaving that club because there's a bigger pay packet here. Is he going to go there, or is she going to go there for this pay packet, or are they going to stay part of that team because they could possibly win a Super Bowl in this team? And but it's sad that loyalty in that profession, and I wouldn't even begin to understand. I don't understand it all. But it's just funny. Loyalty is just, it seems like in that profession, it's just not a thing anymore. It's big pay packet. But there was a day, believe it or not, in sports, it was one man, one club. That was it, And obviously times have changed, and we're living in the 21st century, and you don't want to be that guy that always looks at the good old days, remember those days. We're living in a new day. But I think loyalty is priceless. The loyalty is so valuable. And I think loyalty in a relationship, even my loyalty to Laura, Laura's loyalty to me, is absolutely vital, because I'm saying yes to you and no to everything else. Do you know what I mean? In a relationship.
And I think God blesses it and rewards it, over time. And so the reward is in the fruit as well. So I think, let it speak for itself.
Yep.
So, the message of this generation is convenience. But the message of the gospel is commitment. Wow. And it's actually two different things. Everything's so quick and readily available right now. Everything fast food, iPhones, just everything's update. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, even driving down Parramatta Road, one of the main roads in Sydney, there was this massive billboard. It was the Ashley Madison billboard. I don't know if you remember hearing that, but Ashley Madison was this company. It was a website that organized affairs for people who are in unhappy relationships. These people would log on and like meet other people who were in married relationships. And so their whole slogan was, life is short, have an affair. That was that was like, and we're talking about, this is like public, main road in the city, kids are reading this. And so the message of this generation is convenience. If it's uncomfortable, get out. But the message of the gospel is, it doesn't matter how hard it is, we stay in. If it's challenging at church, stay in. If it's hard, stay planted. If you're in a marriage and there's challenges, stay faithful, stay loyal. And I just think like that is actually the key when it comes to relationships. Where's commitment? When it comes to your faith, where's commitment? Where's the laying down of our lives with the example that Jesus gave? Where is the laying down of our lives? And I don't know, I really appreciate you guys sharing that, because that's powerful. It's powerful.
Something Pastor Brian, Pops I call him, says is, God will accomplish what's on your heart if you're faithful and diligent with what's in your hand. And I think that's so important, is we can be so set on our dreams and our goals, but we lose sight of what's in our hand. And what's in your hand right now is that season you're in, that job that you find so frustrating. I remember, I joked about this morning, but I used to work this job at the airport, and I used to have to travel on train and, all that. And I know, many of you commute and that, but I used to find it a drag. But I just, I decided, you know what? This is shaping me. This is creating something in me. I'm going to stay committed to this. This is what I have on my heart. But God, I'm going to be faithful and diligent with this season that you've put in my hand. Because like you said, it's not about convenience. It's about commitment. There is no quick way in the kingdom of God. If there was, the Israelites would have probably got there in a matter of 3 days, but it took them 40 years. And, I hear some great preachers, they say they left Egypt, but Egypt never left them. And I think that's really cool, because I think we've all got an Egypt that's in us that still needs to come out of us. And I think that's what God's doing in us. It's a process. Marriage, it's a process. There's things that I've still got to work out that are still in me that I need to get out of me. And I think relationships, life is a process. The kingdom of God is a long process. And but that's challenging in our world of the quick picture, filtered, snap, drive through, microwave, air fryer, quickly, right now. I just got an air fryer. Best thing that's ever happened to me.
He loves the air fryer.
I love the air fryer.
Very funny. He tells
It takes
everyone.
like 3 minutes. It's amazing.
Convenience, right?
Convenience. But I think we've got to commit to the slow marinating cook. Those slow cookers, you put them on, you come home from school, the smell fills the air. Like, that's what we got to commit to. So,
Man, I love that. I think that's actually a really great way to end this. And so, hey, come on, let's really thank this once-in-a-generation incredible leaders, Pastor Peter and Laura Toggs. Come on, one more time, let's really honor them. Love you guys so much.